Hey, Composite Gloves here, and today I'm going to show you how to make this cool string pad sound. It's this sound right here. Here's what it sounds like in context. So that's what it sounds like. Here it is soloed. Let me come back over here. So creating these kinds of atmospheres can be really confusing, difficult. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of ways this can get way too complicated. And there's a really easy way to do a lot of these things, and that's use sound sources with reverb. And you'd be surprised how great that can be sometimes. You just have to know how to rein it in. So what I have here is I have an instance of session strings. Now, some of you guys probably aren't running around with copies of session strings. If you own Complete, actually, more of you should have this than the usual libraries I sometimes whip out. So it's just a string library. You could get some other free string library, string samples, string something. You get some sort of a sample thing. And I wrote out some chords that I thought sounded cool. There are these chords here. If I play the part, let me go to a spot that's got the volume up, like right here. And they are, whoops, as you can hear, there's a ton of reverb, and they're going through the staccato patch, and I just maxed it all out because that's what I thought sounded cool. This is, of course, still largely under construction as a track, so things are in the experimental stage. They're coming into mixer channel, I believe it's 19. Let's go ahead and solo that. So I'm simply using that. Now I have a custom patch loaded up so that I can get to my articulations quickly. Let me turn on my MIDI controller here. I have extra windows open and I do not need open. And I closed contact. I love using, no, I didn't close contact. There it is. I love using that as my ability to switch through windows. I don't know. I got super used to it. You could use Alt-Tab too. Or not Alt-Tab. Is it Alt-Shift? Whatever it is. Control-Shift, Control-Tab. Something tab will allow you to scroll through windows. But anyways, I'm just using this. It's just the typical standard setup, nothing fancy. So again, you could use anything for this. It is going into a mixer track here, and this is where it happens. So if I turn this off, it's going to be it's just going to kill the mood. Like, I'm not writing a track where that would fit that well. So I want to remove frequencies in a way that creates the mood that I want. So here I took away all the high frequencies and I removed a lot of the low end and left this sort of mid-range thing. And the mud tends to happen down here and somewhat in here. So I might have to mess with this, but I've sweetened it or zoned in on the sweet spot that I thought sounded really cool. And that would be that section right there. And by doing this, I've given a ton of room for other brighter sounds to shine right on through. It's in the background, fades to the back, and with the use of reverb, it just melds in there and it creates this cool mood. But it's still, I've drenched it, as you can hear, in reverb. Just tons and tons of reverb. Not necessarily as far as the amount is concerned, but how long the decay lasts. I've given it a very long decay. And I've also removed the high end of the reverb. Normally, the reverb's a bit brighter. I said, no way, Jose. I wanted a not bright reverb because of the reasons I just said. I want it to be this mellow thing in the background. I don't want higher. This is supposed to be a duller sound. And so I did so. And the way I reined it in, because once you do that, you heard it can ring for quite a while. So I needed a way to make it play with the drums and other things nicely. I haven't mixed these things yet, but I at least needed spots for it to shine. It was very loud. Sounds kind of funny without the modulation. So what I decided to do was I had a couple choices. I could move this mixer channel up and down, but I do not want to do that. I see people all the time linking their faders up, and sometimes I want to do it just because it looks really cool. But I know that later on down the line, I'm going to want to probably change things, and I like to use these as my global change knob. These are my balance controls. If I want the general balance of a thing to change, I'm going to use my fader. At least I try to. I don't always do this, but I try to be somewhat consistent. So I wanted to control it via something else, and I needed to control it after the effects. And so I pulled out the Fruity Balance plugin. Now it's a 32-bit plugin, so it probably isn't on your thing as of right now. So you can open up the window, type in Fruity Balance, and it'll pop up. I love it. It's great. Just use the volume knob. I'm surprised it's not 64-bit. It's just a volume knob and a panning knob, but it allows me an extra control so that I can use the fader as I desire. So now when I go to my mixing stage later, I can treat this as what I just said, an overall balance control. Now, the way I thought about doing this was I messed with a variety of shapes, and I think I finally got something that sounds really cool, jives, fits my mood, and accomplishes what I want. And that is, I have this sort of it's a sidechain kind of deal going on. I was thinking you could do similar things with things like gross beat, but they just don't provide the same amount of flexibility. So it's just 3 boom, 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 and then a beat of silence so that my bass can ring through, as you can hear. So that is all that's going on there. So that's just a really easy way to create a mood. Alternatively, I tried experimenting with this thing down here. Its volume is off. So it's not actually doing anything. But this is a pad sort of sound. If I bring it up, sounds like that. But it didn't quite meld well. But it's going into the same mixer track, so the same processing. So what I could do now, if I wanted to layer it and embellish it, is route things through this same channel, and it would receive the same amount of processing and fit well with my strings. So now I can go through, and I don't know about you, but I have like tons and tons of samples. There was a day when I had none, and I was like, man, how do these people have all these samples? Now it's like they're pouring out of my ears. And there are tons and tons of packs in here that just have atmosphere sounds for days. Another great source of just random atmosphere sounds and just avoiding the sound design side of things is if you have Contact's great too. I used Contact for this one. But if you have Absinthe 5 is like a monster at creating these sorts of sounds. And then you can use things, you can use Citrus, you can use Harmor. Almost pretty much anything can do this sort of stuff. It's just a little more of a hassle. And I find that making sounds like this is a little more fun to do in separate sessions. And when you're trying to be creative and you have some sort of a mood and groove you're going for, it's good to just have in the back of your head where you can go and reach for inspiration. You can get a lot of really great results from now things about like Harmor, Citrus, or Massive, or other places that have these things and they sound really good. You also get a lot of atonal types of sounds. Like, let me show you. Let's go to, because it's tough to find one. This is literally faster for me right now. It's tough to find one sometimes that quite fits the mood. And by the way, if you're asking for the FLP, this is a track I'm working on pretty heavily right now, so I'm not going to upload the FLP. But let's go in the browser. If you go in and just look at the reason why I think Absinthe is a little better for this, if you go through their presets on their pad sounds, I just find that Absinthe will get me places a lot faster than Massive typically does. I don't get it. But they think that's a pad sound. If you bring the cutoff down, you see, there's closer to a pad sound, but that's not quite what I'm thinking. If we were to remove it and just use all the pad sounds, it tends to be more atonal. We've not even gotten a real tonal one yet. I know they're in here. Now, there's ones that have chords. Those are always interesting, but it's like, that's not really, when I think of synth pad, that's not what I'm thinking of. Like, okay, atmospheric sound, I can see that one. So you get the idea. That's why I mention the ones that I do. Just from experience, I found that I get places faster. If you do have Contact and you have a couple extra bucks, some of the most amazing pad sounds I've heard, as far as like heavenly pad sounds are concerned, come from where is it? If you have Albion 5 Tundra, there's a bunch of pad sounds inside the Steam band, bellow pads and jar pads. Man, These things sound amazing. They're so good. They're just amazing. And guess what they're based on? Samples. So you can get tons and tons of amazing, more organic sounds from samples. You don't have to have this library. I mean, they're set up for you so you can just go and run, but you can grab sounds. You can get sounds like just like kids playing in a park, and you can just start running it through a chorus, running through a bunch of reverb, maybe through some sort of a vocoder, low pass it, band pass it a couple of times, and you just get a really organic pad sound really fast. This one was just like, just slap a string down, EQ the crap out of it, basically just band pass it, and then have some like reverb going through it, and then automate the reverb, or automate the whole sound in this case, on and off with the song. Worked out really great. So anyways, here's like one last, like, so you could hear it, I guess, one more time, now with all these new things in mind. So that's that. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.